You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus.
And that is how the cookie crumbles, which has always been an interesting phrase, even though I have no idea where it originates. Welcome to Me and Paranormal You. This is your host, Ryan Singer. Is this your first time listening to the program? If so, you can expect an hour of this tonal quality to indicate seriousness regarding the content. SMDH, JK, LOL. We don't take ourselves that seriously over here. At least in this corner of the paranormal world, I don't take myself that seriously. Now, there are certain topics and things that will get me riled up and get me fired up. And anyone who listens to this program knows this. Probably the thing that gets me fired up the most is lack of disclosure. That's the number one thing that gets me the most fired up. And if I am ever in danger of losing my sense of humor, it can be because of the gatekeeping of UFO, UAP, NBI, or NBEs, non-human NHI, non-human intelligence, non-biological entities, aliens. Can we just call them aliens, please? Thank you very much. We'll call them aliens over here. So, little green men. We could even call them that. That's the one thing that gets me, it truly gets me fired up. I mean, amongst other things. There's other things, obviously, that I care deeply and passionately about. One of them is shapeshifting. Shapeshifting is finally becoming a little more mainstream. I never thought I'd say that out loud, but golly gee. We got shapeshifting working its way into the nomenclature of mainstream, at the very least, mainstream entertainment and media, when it used to kind of even be fringy to a little bit, even in that, even though it's in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the oldest, at least that we have found, written story. So the paranormal and paranormal themes are in stories. Stories are the bedrock of our reality, of our consensus reality anyway, and even of our non-consensus reality. Stories build everything. They give us purpose in life as individuals. They give us guidance collectively as cultures and societies and cultures within those societies. There are so many different stories being told to all of us simultaneously. Which ones do we listen to? Which ones do we pay attention? Which ones literally do we pay our attention? Our attention is currency in which we dispense that currency. Where are you spending yours? It sounds like you're spending it here right now, and I appreciate that. And I'm going to try to do my darndest to not take that for granted, and hopefully you get some ROI, some return on your investment. Now I sound like Clark Howard. I'm going to tell you how to spend your paranormal money. Okay, so here we go. Put all of your money in disclosure. That's where all of your paranormal dollars should be going. And also consciousness, idealism. The bedrock, the foundation of our existence or of our lives might be stories, but the consciousness is what enables us to weave and craft and create and even retell the stories from our lives, the experiences that we have that are so profound and unknowable become mysteries. They become mystical in many different ways. A mystical experience, if I'm not mistaken, can be defined as a life-changing experience, a paradigm shift in one's life, the way they view the world. Now, we talked a little bit about that with Jeffrey Wilson on this week's Experience. Did you listen to that one? I hope you did, because it is 90 minutes. It's a banger. It's what we call a banger when you're Gen Z or Gen X. What am I? I'm Gen X. because I'm 48, so I'm Gen X. And, Gen X has dropped the ball in so many different ways. But hey, I'm out here, representing Gen X and trying not to be, hey, I found money. I've turned into a stuffy bastard Gen X person. Okay. Gen X is when we were young. We're like, we're going to change the world. Drugs are going to be legal. You know, everything's going to be great and people will be open minded. And then all these people I grew up with got a little bit of money and turned it into pieces of dirt. You know what I mean? They didn't turn into pieces of dirt. They behave as if they were a piece of dirt, oftentimes. I don't know what it is about people getting money that makes them just be assholes, but it happens oftentimes. It changes their worldview for sure. Now, am I so open minded because I don't have money? No, I have so much money. And what I mean by that is money is an imaginary thing that we have made up that represents some kind of value. So I just make up that I have all the money in the world and therefore I have just as much money as anybody else. Now, can I go into a 7-Eleven and can I buy the whole store by just saying, I have all the money, you can have some of it? And they'll say, okay, well, please give me some of that money. And I'd be like, oh, I blinked it to you. In the future, we will be blinking money to each other. That's if we get the implants and the mark of the beast. But nonetheless, I think you get what this rant is about. The crop circle conversation that I had with Jeffrey Wilson, who, in my opinion, is, I don't know if you can talk to anybody who's got more just knowledge or information in their brain, at the tip of their brain, ready to just fire off than Jeffrey. It is going to be my pleasure to have him back on the show here relatively soon as I go back down to Serpent Mound when it's not closed on a not Monday and get to experience the wonder, the beauty, the majesty, and and revel in everything that is wonderful about Serpent Mound and an ancient earthwork that is, a hop, skip, and a jump away from where I grew up in Southern Ohio. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to going back into the rock shop, and seeing everybody if they're around. So nonetheless, let's get back on track. I want to just kind of follow up a little bit with some mainstream materialistic worldview opinion about crop circles. And you can kind of juxtapose some of this information that I'll get from the most materialistic of all websites, Wikipedia. And by the way, I don't dislike Wikipedia, but Wikipedia is like one of these things where it's like you got to have references for all these things and they have to be legitimate and they have to be real. And consensus reality is our number one thing. And consensus reality is good. We need consensus reality. But we don't necessarily need to be dominated we don't need to be, held asunder by the fist of materialism on everything we do, on the tight grip of skepticism as it rings out and, drips dry from the rag of our imagination, all the juice of wonder. A crop circle, crop formation, or corn circle is a pattern created by flattening a crop, usually a cereal crop. The term was first coined in the 1980s. Crop circles have been described as all falling, quote, within the range of the sort of thing done in hoaxes, says Tanner Edis, professor of physics at Truman State University. Although obscure natural causes or alien origins of crop circles are suggested by fringe theorists, there is no scientific evidence for such explanations, and all crop circles are consistent with human causation. All crop circles are consistent with human causation. Now, in 1991, two hoaxers, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley, took credit for having created over 200 crop circles throughout England. The number of reports of crop circles increased substantially after interviews with them. In the United Kingdom, reported circles are not distributed randomly across the landscape, but appear near roads, areas of medium to dense population, and cultural heritage monuments, such as Stonehenge or Avebury. They usually appear overnight. Nearly half of all crop circles found in the UK in 2003 were located within a 15-kilometer radius of Avebury stone circles. Avebury? In contrast to crop circles or crop formations, archaeological remains can cause crop marks in the fields in the shapes of circles and squares, but these do not appear overnight and are always in the same places every year. Interesting information. We have direct, refutable reports of exactly what was said here. I am surprised. He has better things to do with his time. And Wikipedia has never been a place that is open. The bias of the scientific method, which, by the way, isn't waterproof, is so prevalent in everything that we do in our Western society, whether it's ChatGPT, which my friend Daniel Noah has sent me an ongoing conversation he's had with ChatGPT, really exposing the inherent bias that is laid into ChatGPT just from the developers and from the people who make it. And what is the diversity of thought and culture and of person that are the creators of such a thing. And then it just launches out from there exponentially about bias. Now, that doesn't mean, and so when you live in the world of the quote unquote fringe, and by the way, love the word, love it on a jacket, and love being a part of the community. When you live on the fringe, on the jacket or in the world, you experience life to a more full degree, I would argue, because you are open-minded in a way that other people might not find themselves.
If you're too open-minded, your brain might fall out,
says the skeptic who has no joy in their life and probably slams a 12-pack of Milwaukee's Best Light every night after work.
If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
These sayings, right? These pull yourself up by your bootstrap kind of sayings that have become so pervasive, and especially working class American culture, is interesting. Don't get taken for a fool. This kind of stuff, right? Oh, it's only hillbillies or it's idiots who. Why do the UFOs only appear into people who aren't smart enough to know what they're looking at? It's all this garbage, right? These myths that have been told and retold and retold and retold over and over and over again until people just think they're real. And the beautiful thing about the explosion of the internet and podcasting, and specifically paranormal podcasting, there's probably 600,000 paranormal podcasts on the internet now. So I appreciate you listening to this one. We're going into year 12 soon, or year 11 soon. I don't even know. I think it was 2013. Anyway, the point is, the conversations have sprung up. The voices have become more diverse. The experiences and the language used around the experience of the unknown and the paranormal is becoming more normal, more mainstream, more part of what it just means to be alive in this world. And gosh darn it, if that's not a wonderful thing. As someone who struggled for years trying to find, I don't know, let's call it sanity footing with strangers, if peradventure, they were aware of my story of dating a woman who could shapeshift. People would hear that and think that I am just it's just bonzo bonkers over here, right? People, even in the world of comedy, who are bonkers would think that I was, I guess, to a degree more bonkers than they are when they would hear this story. Nonetheless, you feel the judgment, you hear all that, and you trudge on and you keep moving forward. Not everybody wants to go public with their story, And if you want to share your story and you don't want your name attached to it for any reason, no judgment here, by the way. If you like to keep your identity private, especially in today's modern world, I don't blame you. There is absolutely 0% of me that does not understand exactly why you'd want to do that. I mean, there is, over 1,000 hours, certainly, probably, of my voice on the internet. Does the world need over 800 hours or whatever it is of my voice on the internet? Probably not. But the point is, my voice is out there, and out there in a very profound way as far as, quantity. I almost had stuttered there. And so, I could say, someone could make me say anything, I guess. These people are always worried about these deep fakes and all this blah, 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 but that's just not something. I don't fancy myself. It's not like I'm running for president. I'm not running for president, that's for sure. Yeah, so I understand if you don't want to be associated, or you just don't want your personal business out there, at least in a way that's directly attached to you. Well, I got good news for you, because I'm launching another podcast, a companion podcast called Paranonymous, where you can anonymously share your experiences of high strangeness. And there is no strings attached. Now, this will be a conversation. Unless you want to just leave 3-minute increment voicemails, right? You could do that. You could leave your story in 3 minutes at a time, which doesn't sound enjoyable to me, but we used to do that on the Mind Line back in the day. People have done it. Or ideally what happens is I interview you. And we don't use your name, and we can even slightly alter your voice or whatever if you so chose. There will be no video of you on the podcast. Paranonymous. You can share your story. You can experience what I call comfort and community, which is very, very valuable when you have experienced something that maybe rattled you or caused you some kind of existential trauma because of the unknown nature of it and trying to wrap your brain around something that is unexplainable. Sharing that story with someone who has experienced multiple things that are heretofore unexplainable, at least scientifically, and a judgment-free space. And people will listen who are interested in hearing those kinds of stories. You can do that for Paranonymous. And this definitely sounds like a commercial right now, and it 100% is a commercial for Paranonymous, which, because here's the thing that's going to separate it from this podcast specifically. This podcast is not an anonymous podcast. It has been at times. But what will go along with people's stories in tandem will be research and backstory / exposition about the phenomena, or at least a very closely related phenomena, if we can find one, related to what the person has shared. So there will be some history or context, at the very least, attached to the anonymous stories being shared. So I'm very excited about that. You can call the number 818-835-0563. That's the Paranonymous hotline. You can leave a message about the best way to get in touch with me, or with you, rather, to set up a time to do that interview. Again, it's 818-835-0563. Call or text that number. Leave a message or send a text message to 818-835-0563. That's the Paranonymous hotline. If you call, I don't think I've changed the outgoing message from the Mind Line for the Mindcast, but it's the Paranonymous number, so don't worry. And you can leave it there, and you can get in touch with me. I'd love to chat with you. Anonymously. You would be anonymous. I clearly would not be. Although maybe I should use a different name, like it's Paranonymous with Thaddeus X. Or that's not a bad name, actually. Thaddeus J. Or I like Thaddeus X. Thaddeus, this is Thaddeus X, and you're listening to Paranonymous. People are sharing anonymous stories of high strange. I lost it. This is Thaddeus X. You are listening to Paranonymous. Anonymous stories of high strangeness. Are they real or are they fantasy? We know all too well that the lines between reality and the imaginal have long ago been blurred, melted away. Worlds have collided and meshed. Hear more on Paranonymous with Thaddeus X. This is going to turn from a joke into a real thing. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back. Patrons don't have to listen to commercials if you're $3 a month or more. And free patrons, even the ones that get free. I'm going to put this one up for free. Even if you're a free patron, you'll get no commercials. All you got to do is go over there and sign up on patreon.com/Ryan Singer. You can listen to this one without commercials. This is going to be a freebie with Thaddeus X. We'll be right back. And we're coming back in with Thaddeus X on me and Paranormal You. I wonder what Nigel thinks about Thaddeus X. I should not be opening this can of worms right now. I should not be. Okay, fine. I'll unmute your microphone. Yes, I'm unmuting it.
Unmuting me then. Ryan, I gotta say, Thaddeus X, although it does have quite a nice ring to it, you lose all credibility. Are you trying to make a joke out of people anonymously sharing their stories of high strangeness on the new podcast, Paranonymous, which, by the way, you haven't formally asked me to produce and or edit that podcast quite yet, so I'm still kind of waiting on that, whether there's going to be a renegotiation of our current arrangement.
Oh, renegotiation? Deal. What do you mean renegotiate?
Yeah, or renegotiation, because I'll be doing double the work. Actually,
you think double? I don't think so.
Quadruple the work, in fact. It's kind of an exponential. It's exponentiality, actually.
Oh,
so
it is
supercalifragilistic exponentiality.
Oh, wow. So you're, while I appreciate the wordplay and the supercalifragilistic exponentiality, it does have a nice ring to it. Maybe that should be the name of your podcast, supercalifragilistic exponentiality. But I don't think it's going to be quadruple the work. But nonetheless, I mean, the thing we have to decide here, and we don't have to decide here right now, is whether Thaddeus X is going to be my alter ego hosting the show.
No. It's a hard no.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. No.
You don't need to agree with it.
No, I think it might actually be good.
It won't work. It won't work. No, it won't work. Let me tell you what.
God, you're such a
There's a couple reasons. The number one reason is because everyone heard you talking about Thaddeus X just a little bit ago. So everybody knows Thaddeus X isn't real, and it's you.
How would they know that? How would everybody?
Yes, they do know.
Not everybody's going to know that. No, they don't know me.
That's a fair point, indeed. But let's just say it's not going to be that hard.
At least
I imagine you've been promoting this podcast on the other podcast and vice versa. People are going to be able to put two and two together and get you. All right?
Possibly.
And the second and most important reason why Thaddeus X won't work is because you haven't even Googled it.
I haven't.
Someone's probably already calling themselves Thaddeus X.
I mean, it is a great name.
I would not be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised
somebody
either.
out there is already going by the moniker.
God, that's probably true.
Thaddeus X. In fact, I'll bet there's probably multiple people.
Oh, you want to bet on it?
I bet if you got on Instagram or even Venmo for that matter, you'd probably have to be Thaddeus X 49. There's probably
there's
48 different Thaddeus X's out there already.
You think there's 48
I'd
of
wager
them?
on it.
You would?
I would do all the work on Paranonymous without renegotiating my
Oh, this
deal
is getting...
if there wasn't already a Thaddeus X out there.
This is a good deal for me.
Word. You know, I'm like a plank of wood on my word. I'm unbendable. Every
But
once in a while it does break, but
I was
it's
going to say.
unbendable indeed.
Yeah, I'm going to make
That's
this deal.
You look it up and and we'll
I
get
will.
back to me on it.
I will, and I'm going to make that deal with you, and I will get back to you on that. Actually, before the end of the next break, when we have to take the next break, I'm going to look that up. I knew Nigel wasn't going to really be on board with this. It's too cool. Thaddeus X on Paranonymous. I knew. See, it sounds so cool. I knew Nigel would probably poo-poo it. But anyway, we're going off the rails here. I know some people love Nigel. Dare I say Nigel should have his own podcast, but I don't know what he would talk about. Would he just complain about me being unprofessional and going off the rails and, doing too much stream of consciousness? That's probably what his whole podcast would be. Nonetheless, I do, what I've been really on a kick lately of doing book draws, and I'm doing one right now. Let's see what I opened up to. Reflexivity is important because it poses paradoxes for logic. It reveals limits of rationality. It is a topic that is subtly avoided. Several approaches to logic exist. And had repulses, one of them. Okay, sorry. This is from The Trickster and the Paranormal by George B. Hansen. What a great book. Page 274, I just happened to open up to. Several approaches to logic exist, but that of mathematician George Spencer Brown is fruitful. His book, Laws of Form, published in 1969, opens by drawing a boundary, dividing an area into two pieces, and then exploring the consequences of crossing that boundary. His is an extremely simple procedure that is basically mathematical, and logic can be derived directly from it. Boundary drawing is so rudimentary that it is usually overlooked, but it has deep consequences. Spencer Brown noted that the simple act of drawing distinctions is fundamental to structures, quote, underlying linguistic, mathematical, physical, and biological science, end quote. He didn't elaborate upon this statement, but he recognized the power of his formulation. Making a distinction, differentiating one thing from another, carves out an item or event from a larger, more amorphous background. That process gives an identity. In making a distinction, some representation is required, whether simply mental or more concretely, as with gesture, speech, artistic portrayal, or writing. For instance, naming both makes a distinction and creates a representation. Naming, classification, and abstraction are processes of boundary drawing. They are required for thought. They lie at the root of information, communication, and even notions of self and objective reality. Classification and making distinctions are social processes. Early humans used totemism as an important classification scheme. It structured innumerable societies, and it was linked to magic. It didn't appear logical to many 20th century scholars, and they considered it irrational. Yet it survived for thousands of years. Magic is still frequently disparaged, but parapsychology's data indicate that it actually works. The muddled academic discussions about totemism and magic were important precursors to structuralism and deconstructionism. Structuralism helped explicate the order and communications of societies. It provided a link between anthropology on the one hand and literary theory on the other. Deconstructionism was structuralism's successor. It has been applied mostly to texts. It emphasized ambiguity and challenged fundamental assumptions. Like totemism and magic, it was denounced as irrational. Focusing on ambiguity. Sound familiar? Sounds like the liminal space. Oh, here we go. Binary opposition was important in primitive classification, and it has been introduced already. It was a key concept in structuralism. Oppositions are distinctions. In liminal conditions, oppositions and statuses are blurred or inverted. Magic, the paranormal, and the supernatural are intimately tied to issues of boundaries, distinctions, and foundations. The phenomena violate boundaries, blur distinctions, and overturn foundations. Conversely, when boundaries are violated, or distinctions are blurred, or foundations overturned, the supernatural erupts into the world. This is why the phenomena are so difficult to deal with within a rationalistic worldview. And that is the end of that section. It looks like it's the end of chapter 19. That is really cool stuff. I mean, we're talking about having distinction between the two podcasts right before I did a book draw on that. And the difference between the new one and this current one that's been going for 750 plus episodes. That also is a great reminder that if you haven't checked out Liminal, my buddy Dash's paranormal investigation pilot, the time is now to go do that. Interviewed Dash a couple weeks ago. That interview is out there. You can still donate to the Seed and Spark crowdfunding campaign for Liminal, and there is a bonus episode starring Ray Wise from Twin Peaks. You remember Ray? And you will at the moment you see his face. Anyway, they're at his house. I believe they're at his house. And I think he was doing it. In the teaser, you can see him doing the Estes method. Ray Wise apparently is super into paranormal investigations. So you got to check that out. And I can't remember if that's wholly dependent on you donating to the crowdfunding campaign. Anyway, we love Dash, and we hope you'll go support it. So anyway, I love this idea of boundaries and distinction and the blurred lines and overturning foundations, because that's what we were talking about. The materialistic worldview kind of pushes you out if you don't fit into the agreed upon set of rules and understandings that have been predetermined. And they were predetermined over a time spanning well before you had your experience. But what we forget sometimes is that we have done all of this ourselves. We have made up all of these rules ourselves. We have agreed to play by these rules ourselves. So what happens when we no longer agree to play by those rules? Now we become the fringe. We become fringe on the coat if we believe that it is possible to have experiences outside of the explainable, right? I'm not saying that we should just go off the deep end here and throw everything out the window. I'm not that radical, okay? I'm not saying we need to throw out the scientific method. The scientific method is valuable for testing medicine or, building processes or metallurgy and all this other. There's lots of things to be grateful and thankful for, and the scientific method is one of those things. So I'm not over here being like, forget it, man, the scientific method must go. I don't, I'm not gathering a bunch of paranormal friends, lighting torches and trying to find the, Frankenstein's monster named the scientific method. Okay. That's not what I'm not getting a mob together to go do that. That's not what this is about. But we must leave room for the unlearned. And what do I mean by that? I guess that's a weird word I used, but what we have not learned yet collectively. And just because we've experienced it doesn't mean we've learned what it is exactly, even though our experience is probably much more valuable than any definition could ever hope to be about the thing that was experienced. Now, there are certain situations where that does not apply. If you are having some kind of crazy experience and you go to a doctor and then it's like, oh gosh, I wish I could remember the name of it. Very recently, this news story it became very, very popular for people. Many different people shared it with me about the person who had a brain disorder and they woke up one day and now everyone's faces were like deformed, right? And so everywhere they looked, everybody looked scary, kind of like, it had a demonic vibe to it, right? So that is a situation where once it is explained to you that they have found a tangible reason and an explanation and therefore are able to define to a large degree that what you are experiencing is A plus B equals C, or because of A, therefore B, that would be reassuring as opposed to thinking that one day you woke up and the veil disappeared and everyone in the world except you is a demon. Can you imagine if you thought that? I mean, that is a much more difficult way to live your life than having it explained to you scientifically through some kind of brain malfunction or disconnect or disorder. I can't remember the exact wording for that, for what that person is suffering from, if suffering is the right word, and I would assume that it is, or at least it was for a while until maybe they've adjusted to it. Hopefully they've been able to adjust to such a thing. Now, that is a great example, I believe, when information soothes us or eases us and gives us some respite. Now, there are other things like having a disembodied monster voice scream at you in the darkness, not knowing what that is. I mean, if someone told me that was a Bigfoot and they're like, oh yeah, we know that was a Sasquatch, or we know that was a dog man, or we know that was whatever, right? It doesn't retroactively change anything for me as far as my experience in that moment, knowing that I was the bottom of the food chain. You can listen to that. That's third year bonus 76. It's entitled My Encounter with a Sasquatch, I believe is what the title on that is. And I'm almost certain you can go back and listen to any of the episodes of the Mindcast, of this podcast. There's no paywall up on any of these. You can go back and listen to the very, very beginning. There's only a handful of episodes that are no longer available, and there's good reasons those episodes aren't available anymore. But there's only, I don't know, maybe 5 of them or something like that. So out of 750 plus. So I mean, I'd say that's a pretty good percentage. So don't worry about those. And anyway, I think I've only had to ever take 1 or 2 down because the audio quality seemed to bother people so much that it was making them angry. So I took those down. You don't want people pissed off when they're listening to a show you want them to enjoy. So, and one of them was one of the very first ones. Anyway, so you have to take those down because you get enough people complaining. You're like, okay, well this needs to be gone. So anyway, yeah. Nonetheless, here we are. We have clearly defined boundaries about what is accepted in the world, whether we're talking politically, culturally, socially, and especially scientifically. And the paranormal comes in and it's kind of like letting a loose pig out in the living room of science. It's going to knock some stuff over. And most of the people that are in that room who live there in the house of science, they don't want to get their hands greasy and even touch the pig. They don't even want to acknowledge that the pig is in there. And they definitely don't want to be associated with that pig. Although that's changing a little bit. Thankfully, I think this is a weird metaphor. Is it a metaphor or an analogy? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Or is it a simile? It's like or as. So these boundaries, this liminal space is the space where we are. And unfortunately, there's not There's not a lot of answers. And I think a great example of just how intriguing, interesting, and informative the unknown and the liminal space and occupying that area can be is if you go back and listen to this week's episode, interview with Jeffrey Wilson. There is a ton of information in that interview. Now, do you get an answer about A plus B equals C? Well, I'm not going to give away any spoilers if you haven't listened to it yet. But let's just say that liminal space where lots of these phenomena exist, whether it's cryptids, disclosure, ghosts, aliens, UFOs, esoteric knowledge, alchemy, mythological, concepts, or even creatures like the Fae and, some of these other things, the multiverse, parallel dimensions, etc., etc. They're all in there. They're all in the haze. They're all in the mist. And I think Jeffrey Wilson does a great job of demystifying the mystical to a large degree when it comes to crop circles. It looks like we're getting ready to take another break, so I have to look up. When we come back, I'm going to find out if anyone is already using the name Thaddeus X. Maybe somebody already has the name Thaddeus X, and that's why I even thought of it, because I have already seen it, and I liked it. So maybe I'm ripping somebody's name off this whole time, and didn't even realize it because I've seen it already. This is Thaddeus X, and to all my TXers out there, we'll be right back, commercial free on patreon.com/Ryan Singer, parentheses, your boy Tad X. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to the program. This is Nigel, the producer and the editor of the Mindcast. Me and Paranormal You. I have results from searching for Thaddeus X. In fact, already is an Instagram handle at Thaddeus X, already taken. Wouldn't you know it? Now, there only seems to be about 2 Thaddeus X's on the Instagram, at least on that part of social media. Now, when you get to Venmo, or if you're, because those were the 2 that were referenced earlier, if I'm not mistaken, if you go to Venmo and therefore you search, I'd like to pay someone named Thaddeus X, well, guess what? There's, oh no, that's a Thaddeus X. Thaddeus X. Guess what? There is not a Thaddeus X on Venmo. So I'll stand corrected on 48 Thaddeus X's out there. Doesn't seem like there's a ton of them. If you do a search on DuckDuckGo, which we like to use because we value our privacy over here at the Mindline, you can get, there's the baby name meaning of Thaddeus. It'll get you out. So 2 Ds actually. I've been only searching with 1 D, so maybe with double D. Let's go to the double D on the Instagram there, which we did not do previously. We did the singular D, so Thaddeus X. It looks like there are actually, looks like there's 3. There's 3 Thaddeus X's on Instagram with the double D's. One of them has not posted since November 17th, 2012. So it's been 12 years since the person with Thaddeus X has posted. We could message them, of course, and try to get that handle.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to work.
There's no chance.
That person
right?
probably doesn't even know how to log into that account anymore.
I highly
So
doubt
it looks like there's about 6 total.
Yep.
And I'll stand corrected. Looks like I'll have to edit and do
Yes, you will.
the new podcast. Regrettably, regrettably have to do it for free.
Regrettably.
Oh, I know you're taking quite a bit of pleasure in that, aren't you?
Oh, I am.
Quite a bit indeed.
I am reveling in this, Nigel. Thaddeus X is reveling in the defeat of Nigel. Oh my God, I do appreciate it, Nigel. 'Cause you didn't have to do that live while we were recording, but you did, and I appreciate you for doing that. I can't tell you how much you're a good friend, and maybe we will. No, I'm not going to say that because then it's on the record. I almost said it, but I'm not going to say it. You said you'd do it for free, and that's what I've got you locked in at right now. I'm going to hold you to it. Thaddeus X. I do want to look up. Can you send me over the baby name? Meaning, you said you had that. Just send that over to my computer if you can, Nigel. Okay, there it is. I got it. Yeah, I want to. So it's Aramaic, meaning unclear. Possibly from Theodore. So the meaning is unclear. Doesn't mean unclear. That's what I thought it meant. Meaning unclear, like Thaddeus meant unclear. The meaning is unclear, possibly from Theodore, which would be gift of God. Excuse me. Wow, I cannot have the hiccups while I'm recording right now. What has just happened? The name Thaddeus is a boy's name of Aramaic origin, meaning gift of God. This person seems to think, Sophie Kim seems to think that it's clear. It is clear. Thaddeus, a distinguished, long-neglected name, has several areas of appeal. A solid New Testament legacy, a nice antique feel, and the choice of several more modern nicknames and international variations. In the Bible, Thaddeus was one of the original 12 apostles. Wait, what? How did I not remember that? Thaddeus has made quite a few screen appearances, ranging from SpongeBob SquarePants to Police Academy to Get Smart. Wow, that's quite the range. It was the given name of the chief. Also in Harry Potter. Is this all really coming together like that? Remember when I did the Harry Potter thing a little bit ago? I don't even remember what I was. As Tadzio is the Slavic version. In real life, Thaddeus Stevens was a dominant political figure during the Civil War. Mia Farrow has a son named Thaddeus. What a great name. Would they go by Tad? I don't know if... Tad seems like such a... So in the U.S., in the top 1,000, it's currently ranked number 903. So the good news, if you named your kid Thaddeus, there's 902 other names that are more popular. Like if you looked at Ryan right now, I swear Ryan's probably like top 10. See, when I was younger, when I was a baby, I'm sure it wasn't. And then everyone encountered, kids like me named Ryan, and they're like, holy shit, these Ryan, all these Ryan kids are pretty great. I'm going to name my kid Ryan. Boy or girl, doesn't matter. I dated a woman named Ryan. It's so funny. I was telling a friend of mine that I don't get personal on my podcast, and then I, literally 12 hours later, recorded an episode where there was some personal stuff last week, I believe. And this isn't that personal. This is funny. It's personal, but it's funny. It's something that I would discuss, even amongst strangers, that I did date a woman named Ryan many years ago. And boy, oh boy, was that just kind of weird. There were certain moments, as you could imagine, where that's weirder than others. I think you can, when you're out with people and people say, hey, Ryan, we're both always answering. That's one of the situations, but that's not the one I'm really referencing. I mean, you know what I'm getting at. It was weird. It's like a test of your own self-centeredness. Like, oh, I've always, Okay, we're not going to go there. Anyway, so yeah, I recommend it if you can do it. I highly recommend dating someone with the same name as you. It's just, it could be fun for you. It was fun while it lasted. I knew that relationship wouldn't work for lots of reasons, but I dated one time. I dated a woman who she said to me, she came to my comedy. The first time she came to one of my comedy shows, she goes, "Don't you think you could be more like Jerry Seinfeld?" And I was just like, "Oh my God, this is never going to work." And that's not a slight to Jerry Seinfeld, but I am not going to be Jerry Seinfeld. If you've ever seen me do comedy, in which, by the way, you should come see me in Louisville, Kentucky next weekend on August 16th. I'll be at Hot Alien Summer Camp this coming Friday, or so that's like a day from when this comes out, outside Nashville. And then I will be that's on the 9th. And then, that's on August 9th. And then on August 16th, a week after that, I will be at Planet of the Tapes in Louisville, Kentucky. And then on 2 days after that, on the 18th, I will be in Asheville, North Carolina. And then a few days after that, on the 21st, which is a Wednesday, I will be, so Sunday in Asheville, the following Wednesday, the 21st, in Wilmington, North Carolina, Waterline Brewing Company. So that's such a fun show. You really should come out. Last time I was there, former guest, multiple times on this program, was there hanging out before her new book had come out. So I'm not saying that she might be there again, but you never know. Anyway, so yeah, and then I'll be at Go Bananas Comedy Club in Cincinnati, Labor Day weekend, the 29th through September 1st or 2nd, whatever days those are. And then Wiley's Comedy Club in Dayton, Ohio, for the last show that ever happens in that comedy club on September 7th. What a damn sad night that's going to be. There's going to be every comedian who has any true connection to Dayton, Ohio. If they're able to make it back, they're going to be making it back. It's going to be the hangout extraordinaire at that show. There's going to be so many comedians hugging. There will be certainly there will be tears shed, and there will be most certainly laughs had. Those tickets go on sale Friday, wileyscomedy.com. They will sell out. They'll sell out probably pretty fast. It's a big deal here in Dayton, Ohio, that place is closing. The oldest comedy club in Dayton, Ohio, where I started, where I call home. And goddamn, I'm going to miss that place. I'm getting sad thinking about it, so I'm going to talk about it. Let's get back to the paranormal. This is my thing now, I go from Trickster to the Book of Symbols. The Book of Sims. Let's see what we got. I just opened it up. Oh my God. Okay, this is going to be fun. Oh, I love this one. Trees. I'm under the section trees. I opened up to Kabbalistic tree. For the Kabbalists, the tree, let's see how this ties in, shall we? We're talking about boundaries. We're talking about the liminal space, right? For the Kabbalist, the tree of life serves, among other things, as a kind of filing system for all archetypes. There are many versions of the tree. The one shown here, taken from a 1652 work by the occultist Athanasius Kircher, is the best known type. The Sephirot, portrayed as 10 circles, are connected with divine names and principles. I would get this tattoo. I don't have a tattoo. I would get this on my back. The Sephirot, portrayed as 10 circles, are connected with divine names and principles. The paths connecting the Sephirot symbolize the connections between the different levels of the cosmos. At the top is the infinite, the horizon of eternity. Next is the mundus archetypus, the archetypal world, associated with the angelic hierarchies. Lower levels indicate the realms of the planets and the elements, with Malkuth, or kingdom, or earthly reality at the bottom. How did the world arise out of nothing? Are we talking about idealism here? Are we talking about consciousness being the foundation of everything? How did the world arise out of nothing? How does it sustain its existence on the unfathomable The unfathomable. That's all, folks. How does it sustain its existence on the unfathomable, unfathomable depth of the void? How can we on earth make our way back to the divine? The Kabbalah provides powerful and sublime answers to these questions. Meaning, tradition in Hebrew, it is the esoteric teaching of Judaism. Like all such teachings, it is ultimately about the many levels, visible and invisible, that connect the primordial unity with the reality we experience every day. Side note, the primordial goo is one of my favorite phrases I've ever heard someone say. The Kabbalistic tree of life presents the essence of this teaching. This ladder of lights, as it is sometimes called, can be traced back to the mystical Judaism of the 13th century Spain, and gives a succinct yet profound picture of the universe as envisaged by the Kabbalists. The tree has informed and inspired countless mystics, Jewish, Christian, and others. For all its apparent obscurity, it is not a particularly difficult or intricate system. One could memorize it in an evening. Oh, let's put that to the test. Let's see if I can memorize it after I'm done here. One could also spend a lifetime contemplating it and still find new things to learn. Oh boy, what I just get myself into. The most familiar version of the Tree of Life depicts 10 circles symbolizing the Sephirot or principles. The singular is Sephirah, arranged in 3 columns or pillars. This system gives a flexible but dynamic view of the workings of existence that can be applied to everything from the creation of a cosmos to the baking of a cake. At the top is the Kether, or crown, the dimensionless point at which something begins to appear out of nothing. At the bottom is Malkuth, or kingdom, our familiar, solid reality. Between these, the other 8 Sephirot, with names like Tifereth, which means beauty, and Yesod, foundation, symbolize the forces of expansion, contraction, and equilibration. Equilibration? Okay. That beget and maintain all things. Some of these things are difficult to read for the very first time into a microphone. The Kabbalistic tree is far more than an intellectual system. It is a profound tool for expanding the horizons of consciousness. Some Kabbalists ascend to higher states of awareness by visualizing themselves rising through the Sephirot. Ooh, that is going to be fun to do. Wow, that is going to be fun to do. Others may meditate on one of the several Hebrew names of God, each of which is associated with a particular Sephirah. A Kabbalist who wishes to evoke rigor or severity will focus on the left side of the tree, called the pillar of strength. Another who wishes to foster loving kindness works with the right, the pillar of mercy. None of the pillars, or Sephirot, is better or worse than the others. What is most important is to experience these principles directly and bring them into balance. This is the work of the central column, called the pillar of mildness, sometimes called the pillar of consciousness. I love that. It is consciousness at all levels that enables us to choose between mercy and rigor, between expansion and contraction, at each moment of our lives. Perhaps the central teaching of this profound symbol is that there is a single structure that underpins all things. This is the immanent aspect of God. The side of the absolute that we can know and experience. It is as much a part of ourselves as it is of the external world. The Kabbalah teaches that this divine system has an order and a beauty of its own, and that by coming to know and align ourselves with it, we may promote greater harmony both within ourselves and in what is around us. Wow, it's a really, really cool drawing. And the Kabbalistic tree, Yakshi is on the next page. I got to tell you, that was pretty cool. So we got the Kabbalistic tree. we do know a couple things. We know that in this life, all we have are the moments in front of us. And we have our memories of the past, and we have our presence in the present. While it is fun to look forward to the future, it is also very gratifying to look back on the past and smile. And sometimes go back to those darker periods of our past and realize, wow, to borrow a phrase from the wonderful band musician Field Report, from a song, extricate ourselves from the mud. Extricate was a word that came up earlier in The Trickster and the Paranormal by George P. Hansen, and every time I hear it, I think of that song. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. And this is all we've got, right? And in the meantime, we can do our damnedest to keep an open mind and listen to people's stories and give them the benefit of the doubt. That's a wonderful phrase, by the way. The benefit of the doubt. We give that to each other when we hear these stories of the seemingly unexplainable and supernatural. And why do we do that? Maybe we've had our own experiences and we have benefited from others' benefits of the doubt. That's not to say that we don't keep discernment. Assuredly, we do. Most certainly, it's something to hold on to. But when it comes to the sharing of stories that make us feel insane, there is comfort in community, and damn it, I love that. And this community here has done wonders for me over the last 11 years, and this is the final episode. No, I'm just kidding. This podcast will end at some point. I just don't know when that's going to happen. I got no designs on it right now, but the comfort and community that has been created, curated here over the last 10 plus years there's no way for me to fully express my gratitude to you, the listener, for giving it a shot, and for Nigel, and for everybody else who's helped along the way, like my buddy Alex Stein. So check out ryansingercomedy.com. I got tour dates. Like I said, I kind of laid them out earlier. I tried to do them a little earlier because sometimes I think people don't listen to the very, very end. So I tried to sneak them in there. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. We did our first live stream last night. Thanks to everybody who popped in, said hi. I'll do a better job of promoting that in the future. We'll do one of those each month at least, right? Plus some other new ideas to spice up the Patreon page. Thank you so much for being a patron. I appreciate it. You can join for free. This episode will be advertisement free over there. I hope to see you at a live show. I really, really do. But if I don't worry. I'll just see you at the watering hole on the astral plane with Thaddeus X.